Okay, I think we're live. Good
Oh,
seeing you
nice.
there.
Hi,
Christine, what
everybody.
time is it for you in Ireland? Well, actually, I don't know if you are in Ireland. I think you might be in Italy right now.
Oh,
And
wow.
Elaine, nice of you to join us, Elaine. Jen, Jen's here, and Holly.
Oh, Holly. Hello. It's so fun. So
Um,
fun. I love seeing names that I know. It's like,
yeah.
yay.
I know. It's the
Like a
best.
party. It's like a party.
Hello to both of
Oh,
you.
hello,
We'll
hello.
give everybody a few minutes to join. I was just telling Betty we're in Nebraska, and it's actually quite lovely. We're right by this huge lake, and we're the only people in the campground. And we've been the only people in the campground pretty much the whole time we've been here. So it's like
Wow.
really quiet and peaceful, and
Wow.
yeah, it's been delightful. But it is really, really windy today. And for anybody who's on here who doesn't know this, we live in an RV. And the wind is strong enough to kind of be shaking the RV. So if you see my camera wobbling around a little bit, that's what's happening. We're not having an earthquake.
Oh,
The
my
walls
gosh.
aren't going to fall down.
Wow.
It's
Wow. Wow.
just very windy.
Yeah. Well, and then as a contrast, so I'm in Southern California for those that don't know, and it's like 90 degrees here today. So I'm like in like sleeveless, my face is all shiny, it's hot. It's all good.
No, totally different environment. Yeah, it's cold. It's cold here. I think it's like, well, I mean, relatively cold. I think it's like 50 degrees out there, but with the wind, it's pretty.
That's cold.
Yeah, that's cold for you for sure.
Very. That's tundra right there. Oh my God.
Cheryl's joining us. Good to see you, Cheryl.
Oh, hi, Cheryl. It's so great. So fun. But yeah, so it's warm here, but I have the air conditioning on and it's okay.
Yes, yes, yeah. Gotta do what you gotta do. So,
Yeah.
what's the coldest you ever remember it being in Southern California?
Oh, it has actually gotten cold enough here to snow. That is very, 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 very rare, but I want to
Really?
say, yeah, it was like probably 10 years ago in our area. Yeah, we woke up one morning and it was white everywhere. It was crazy. And I remember, I remember people went out and nobody knew how to drive in snow. So people are just driving all over. And, but everybody wanted pictures because it was like, how do you ever get snow? But like an hour from here is Lake Arrowhead, which is, up the mountain. They get snow almost every year. So yes, we could drive an hour and be in snow, but just in our area, never. So it dipped into the 20s. Yeah, which was crazy. It was very short-lived. Yeah.
Yeah, Jen's reminding me that Louisiana last year had a snowstorm, and I remember seeing all the pictures of people out there with cameras, a lot of whom had grown up in the area and had never seen snow before in their whole lives. So,
Yeah. Isn't that
yeah,
amazing? That's
yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
We're heading to Southern California in February of next year, and we're heading there to escape the snow. So I would
Oh, right.
appreciate.
Let me put in the order right now. So
Yes, thank
no
you. Thank you.
snow.
Appreciate that. Check. Oh, well, we're here to make pie crust today. And before we do that, I'm going to introduce both of us. My name is Rebecca. I run and publish two recipe websites. You'll find them at ofbatterandough.com and a littleandalot.com. And I also write a Substack newsletter. My husband and I live full time in an RV and we travel around the country. And so I share recipes that are inspired by a lot of the places that we visit, and I write a lot about life on the road and a bunch of other things as well. You can find that newsletter at rebeccablackwell.com. So I would encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. The newsletter is called Let's Get Lost, but you'll find it at RebeccaBlackwell.com. And also, in a moment, Betty's going to tell you where to find her newsletter. Subscribe to both of those, and you'll get the recipes that we're going to share with you today. These are pie crust recipes that Betty and I have been using for a long time. I can't remember how long I've been making this pie crust recipe, but I think it's been 30 years.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
One of my oldest and closest friends is actually, I won't go into the details of this because she's our age, but she's one of my husband's aunts. And
Yeah.
she's like oldest and closest friend. And she sent me this picture of a recipe book that her mother-in-law put together of an old family recipe that is extremely similar to the one that I made. And here's the thing. Many, many years ago, my husband and I have been married for 31 years. And when we got married, somebody gave us like a it's a small recipe book that you handwrite the recipes into. I mean,
Oh,
this was
yeah.
before this was before the internet.
Yes.
So I wrote this recipe for foolproof pie crust in that book,
Oh,
and I've been making it
wow.
ever since. And I couldn't remember where I got it from, but
Mm.
then this friend of mine sent me a picture of her mother-in-law's entry into this family
Oh,
cookbook,
wow.
and that's the recipe. So I think that's probably where I got it. So I've been making it for a very, very long time. And it really, really is foolproof, as I'll show you.
Wow. 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 Wow.
So Betty, take a moment to introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you. So I am Betty of Betty Eats, the Betty Eats website, and then also I have a newsletter on Substack called the Betty Eats newsletter. And I write about California cuisine. So I live in Southern California, and of course, the weather here is beautiful most of the time. But what is really wonderful is that we have kind of this mashup of different cultures here. And so, California cuisine, you'll find lots of influences from Asian cuisines and Mexican, South American, Middle Eastern, and it's all kind of like melded together. And so that's what I love to eat and what I love to write about. And so this particular recipe is not my own. It is something from Cooks Illustrated from about, gosh, I've been making it maybe 10 or 15 years. Cooks Illustrated came out with the special ingredient that we'll talk about in a minute. And I found that it just works so well for me. So that's what I use and have been using for a long time now. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm
yeah.
really excited about that because yes. So also I'm going to mention this now, and I'm also going to mention at the end. Betty will be sending out a post with how many pie recipes are you putting in this
Oh my
post?
goodness. So it's called Holiday Pie Palooza. And I think I have 30 recipes right now from just all different food writers. And people have been sending me their recipes. And so it's very exciting. So it's sweet and savory pies. So, yes, you can eat pie for dinner.
Yes, you can. And I highly encourage it.
Yeah, very exciting. Very
So
exciting.
all
And I,
people need to do is subscribe to your newsletter to get
yes,
that, right? And it's
yes,
30 something recipes from all like I have
yep,
a recipe in there. So
yep,
many different food writers have their favorite recipes in there. So yeah, you're
yes,
gonna want to get
yes.
your hands on that for sure.
Yes, and what's incredible too is it's so interesting. Food writers are so generous and kind. So many of them have they developed a recipe just for this post. So they like developed it and recipe tested it and photographed it and or they kind of unlocked a paywalled post or just so many different things. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is so generous and amazing. So very excited to share that with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So that comes out. Does that come out this weekend?
It comes out on Saturday. Yeah.
Okay. On
Yeah.
Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure to subscribe to Betty's newsletter to get that post. And if you subscribe to either one of our newsletters, you'll at least get a link to that post and you'll get both of these both of these pie crust recipes. So
Yeah.
I'm going to dig in. So I have several tips to share with you that I've just kind of learned over the years. The basic recipe, like I said, I've been making this for 30 years, but there's been some tweaks along the way. So with pie crust, you can pretty much take any pie crust recipe and use any kind of fat. You could use all butter, or you can use lard even, or
Mhm.
shortening, or any combination of those two. There's pluses and minuses to either one. Butter has the most flavor. And so, you'll see a lot of recipes for all butter pie crust. And the reason that they do that is because that's where all the flavor is. Shortening, on the other hand, which the original recipe that I wrote down for foolproof pie crust used vegetable shortening. Shortening has no flavor at all whatsoever. And so that's really the downside. Now, the upside to using vegetable shortening is it doesn't have any water content. Butter has fat, obviously, but it also has pretty high water content. And
Mm.
so what happens is when that butter starts to melt, especially when you're baking it, that butter starts to work its way into the flour, and it develops more of a gluten structure. And so you can end up with a tougher pie crust. So using shortening, that doesn't happen at all. And so you can end up with kind of the lightest, flakiest crust,
Mhm.
but not the
Mhm.
flavor. So I like to use a combination of both. So what I'm going to use here is 4 cups of flour. This will make enough pie crust for 2 double crust pies. So 4 pie crusts. So it makes quite a bit. And I'll talk to you about storing and freezing it later. But 4 cups of all-purpose flour, any kind of all-purpose flour. 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar. And if you are making a sweet pie and you want a sweeter dough, you can use more sugar than that. I've used as much as like a quarter to a third of a cup for sweet pies, and that's great.
Mm.
So play around with that depending on what kind of pie that you're making. Salts, 2 teaspoons of salts. Again, this is your pie that you're making. And so if you want a little bit more salt in the crust, then add a little bit more. Or if you want a little bit less, then add a little bit less. And then we have 1 3/4 cups of fat. So because I like to use half and half, or almost half and half, of shortening and butter, what I have here is 3/4 cup butter. And I've cut the butter into little pieces, which will make it easier to blend it into the dough. They're like, oh, I don't know. They're like the size of a sugar cube. The butter should be cold. So I just took this out of the fridge. And then I have a cup of vegetable shortening. Okay, so we've got 1 3/4 cups. Now I start the dough in the food processor. You can start it in a bowl. Either way, if you're going to start it in a bowl, you just want to add the flour and the sugar and the salt to the bowl, and then you add in the fat. And you can use like a pastry cutter, or you can just use your hands to just rub the fat into the flour. Or you could use a food processor, which is what I'm going to use, and it goes much quicker. Now, here's a little trick that I learned a couple of years ago that is a brilliant trick. Um, in my food processor, I have only 3 cups of the 4 cups of flour that we're going to use.
Mm.
And the reason for that is that the flakiness from that you most of us want a flaky pie crust, and that flakiness is the result of how the gluten that is developed in the pie crust, which isn't a lot, but it is absolutely there, how that interacts with the fat. So by starting out with only 3 cups of the flour, I'm gonna blend that 3 cups of flour with the fat, and I'm gonna get that flour will be completely coated in fat. Then I'm going to add the last cup of flour. The last cup of flour I'm going to barely blend in. So then what we're going to end up with is a dough where a lot of the flour is completely coated in fat and some of the flour is not coated in fat. And that layering is going to give you the flakiest texture. You're not going to believe the difference. You can take any pie crust recipe and do this technique, and it will be flakier than anything you've ever made. Okay, so in my food processor, I have 3 cups of flour and 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of flour or of of salt. I am just going to give that a quick pulse. Maybe. Not sure why it's not turning on. Oh, oh, because my lid isn't all the way on. There we
Oh,
go. There we go. Just to mix the salt and the sugar and the flour around. Okay, then I'm going to add that cup of shortening.
and Rebecca, is the shortening cold as well? Do you like refrigerate your shortening or no?
I didn't, and I never have, and it hasn't ever
Mm,
seemed to make a difference.
okay.
One of the interesting things about this technique where you add the last cup of flour after you've blended the fat into the rest of the flour is
Hmm.
that the coldness doesn't matter as much. Now, it's really important once the dough is made to refrigerate that before you roll it out because we
Hmm.
don't want the butter to start to melt.
Hmm.
But part of why you want to use really cold ingredients is to keep some of the fat from blending into the flour. But we're doing that anyway. And
Oh,
so it doesn't
makes
matter as
sense.
much that it's not super cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got that in there. And I'm just going to turn this on to high and I'm going to blend the fat into the flour pretty much all the way. It's going to create kind of like a paste. So this is something that's a little bit different from a lot of pie crust recipes as well. A lot of pie crust recipes will tell you to keep some chunks of flour in the dough. And one of the theories on that is that then as the fat melts as it bakes, that it starts to create these pockets and you get some flakiness. But it turns out that that's not actually what's happening. It's just that not all of the flour is coated with the fat. And that's what's
Oh,
creating the flakiness. And so you're getting the same results either way. But because we're adding that last cup of flour after, we don't actually need to worry about it. So I'm going to pulse this until it's all the way blended in.
wow.
You can kind of see, I don't know if you can see, it's like starting to create kind of a wet, pasty texture. That's great.
Hmm.
That's what we want. Okay, there we go.
Oh, yeah, you can really see that.
Yeah, that fat is completely blended into the dough.
Wow.
So it's really sticky at this point because we haven't added our last bit of flour yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and add that last cup of flour, and I'm just going to barely mix it. So we don't want to incorporate that all the way. At this point, I think it's easier. You can add the liquid in the food processor if you want. I think it's a lot easier to actually dump it into a bowl. I dump it into a bowl. I'm going to turn my camera and then we're going to add the liquid. So you can see here that we've got this like pasty part that where the fat is like really blended into the flour. And then we have quite a bit of the loose flour. This is a good thing. This is what we want
Hmm.
because now we're going to add the liquid. In this recipe, the liquid is 1 egg and a tablespoon of vinegar. I'll tell you about those ingredients here in a minute. And then we have a half a cup of ice water. So I'm going to add the egg and the vinegar. And then I'm going to add a half a cup of ice water. I think I have a little more than a half a cup there, so I'm going to pour some out. Some of my ice cube melted. We ended up with a little more. Okay. You can use your hands to do this. I find that a flat rubber spatula works perfectly well. This is going to be a pretty wet dough. Again, we're thinking about some of the flour being incorporated in the fat and some of it not. And so if your dough is on the wet side, when you actually go to roll the dough out, you roll it out on a floured work surface. And that's going to further incorporate a little bit of non-fat covered flour into your dough. So this is actually a little too wet for what I like to have it. So I'm just going to sprinkle in a little bit more flour. The beautiful thing about pie crust is if it's dry and crumbly, you just add a little bit more water. And if it's
Mhm.
a little too, like, you don't really want it like cookie dough. You want it you want it to be a little sticky, but a little firmer than cookie dough. So now that's much better. Much, much, much better. So at this point, all I'm going to do is cover this and refrigerate it. It's really important that the dough is refrigerated so that you can roll it out cold. That fat needs to kind of harden up, or else it's just going to be really hard to work with. Really hard to
Mhm.
work with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, 30 minutes will do it. But you can keep, I think I got flour in my hair. Um, you can keep a batch of this dough in the refrigerator for 3 to 5 days. Now, the reason that you can keep this for that long in the refrigerator is because of the vinegar.
Mhm.
Vinegar helps to preserve it. A lot of pie dough, if you leave it in the refrigerator for a while, will start to get kind of a brownish,
Mhm.
grayish color.
Yeah.
And it won't hurt you, but it's not particularly appetizing. So, but the vinegar will keep that from happening. So vinegar, that's one of the reasons why vinegar is in this recipe. The other reason that it's in there is to tenderize. Now, I have read some things in the last few years about how adding vinegar to pie crust dough, it's kind of a myth that it tenderizes it,
Oh.
which is really interesting. So, I made two different batches of dough, one with vinegar and one without. And I'll tell you that the vinegar does make a difference, but it is tiny. It is a very
Mm.
small difference. So if you don't want to use it, don't. Now, what
Mm.
I love about it more than the fact that it tenderizes the dough is it adds a little bit more flavor. Acid is flavor, vinegar is flavor. And so, in addition to the sugar and the salt and the butter, just that little bit of acid just kind of bumps up the flavor a little bit more. So I really like that.
Mhm.
The egg makes it malleable. So when you're
Mhm.
rolling this dough out, um, if you're Italians and French, and I think Germans have been adding eggs to their pastry dough forever. I don't know why Americans don't. But if you're on here and you're European, you're like, well, yes, of course, we add an egg to our dough. But I mean, like, it makes it so much easier to work with. It's
Mhm.
way less likely to break when you're rolling it out. So
Mhm.
that's what the egg is in there.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a question. It's
Yeah,
interesting, about the vinegar. Do you always use, kind of like just plain white vinegar, or do you also use different ones, different
yeah, that's
flavor?
a great question. Thank you for asking that. So either white vinegar or something like white wine vinegar or rice vinegar. Um, Today I actually used apple cider vinegar. That's totally
Mm.
fine.
Oh,
I
okay.
wouldn't use like a red wine vinegar, and I wouldn't use a
Yeah,
balsamic.
yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, and it's only a tablespoon, so it's not a
Mm.
huge amount anyway.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so at that point you just refrigerate it. The dough can also be frozen and kept in the freezer for up to 3 months. Um, Usually the easiest way, I think, is to refrigerate it, roll it out, and then freeze it like already rolled out on a baking tray, a cookie
Mhm.
sheet, so that you have these flat sheets and freeze them that way. And that
Oh,
way you can just pull one out of the oven or out of the freezer and let it defrost a little bit, and then just fit it right to your pie plate, whatever
yeah,
you're going to bake.
yeah, that's a good idea to
Yeah.
roll it out and have it flat. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You can freeze the dough in little
Mhm.
balls. Obviously, you'll want to let them thaw before you roll them out. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
this goes in the refrigerator. I am going to show you a few things about how to roll the dough, and then we're going to talk about baking the pie crust and pre-baking and partially pre-baking and that kind of stuff. But before we do that, Betty, dive in. to
Okay.
your favorite pie
Okay.
crust recipe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I loved what you talked about with, I'm gonna back up just a smidge. I loved what you talked about with butter bringing like that aroma and that flavor. I do use shortening from time to time, but I always go back to butter. Because
Yeah,
I guess butter makes everything better. I don't know,
um, I
but
agree.
yeah, I do love butter. Um, so I have, it's kind of a similar recipe. It is 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Um, I do a half teaspoon of salt, but so I'm going to just go ahead and add that. So a half teaspoon of salt, but that is because I use salted butter, and I know that that might be controversial. Some people want to use unsalted butter only. I will be honest, I very rarely have unsalted butter in my house. So
Yeah.
I use salted butter. So if you're using unsalted butter, then you will want to maybe up the salt a little bit. But that's that's what I'm using is unsalted butter. And I'm going to show you. Let me grab this quickly from my freezer because I use frozen butter. Um, I don't know if you
Nice.
have hot hands like I do, but anytime I work with the dough, I find that the butter melts fairly quickly. Maybe it's the temperature of where I live, but what I am using is 2 cups of butter and I grate it. So you can grate it on a regular box grater, but I think what is quicker and faster is like a if you have a KitchenAid mixer to have that grating attachment. So that is what I did. I already did this because, it's a lot of butter. So you can kind of see, and the because it's grated, it's already into these little teeny tiny shreds, really tiny shreds,
It looks
and
like cheese.
it does look like cheese. Um, I could eat it like cheese, but it makes it really easy to incorporate then into the flour because, you know, kind of the thing too with uh, pie dough and certain types of breads, kind of the less you handle it, sometimes is the better because the less chance for gluten to develop because you, like you said, you want it flaky and, um, delicious. And so I think we've all had we've all had pie dough that's a little leathery and kind of like, So
No.
this hopefully avoids that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I don't know if you can see this, kind of add this and then lightly toss it together. And again, like you mentioned, we are coating all the flour with this fat and you get all of that incorporated.
How much butter did you say that was, Betty?
This is 4 sticks.
Okay, yay. Oh man, that's amazing. We love
So this is, yes, it's a very buttery dough. Um, and this makes 3 single crust pies. Now I like a generous um I like a generous rim on my pie crust,
it.
but I would think you could maybe stretch this into 4, but this is like a normal 9-inch pie crust. This also makes a if you're doing a sheet pan pie, this makes that, or an open faced sheet pan pie, this makes the bottom layer of that on like a 18 by 13, I think is the sheet pan.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. So the next thing then, and this is what is kind of fun and interesting, is with Cooks Illustrated, this was back in like, I don't know, early 2000s. They came out with this pie recipe that included vodka in it. And I know, flour flew in kitchens. So what is happening here with the vodka? So you are still adding water, but you're replacing about half of the water you would normally add with vodka. And the reason for that is that vodka will evaporate and again leave you with little pockets of places in the dough where it gets flaky. So um, Yeah. So thanks, ethanol in the in the vodka.
It's such a great idea, honestly. It's
It
kind of
is.
brilliant.
It
Yeah.
is. And, you know, vodka has no flavor. It has no taste. I mean, honestly, you could use any spirit, but those are going to add a little bit of a different taste or flavor. But vodka is kind of flavorless. And so, unless you get like citrus, you know, something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of these is water and one of these is vodka. We don't know which is which. Actually, that's the vodka. So we're going to add that. And, you know, people might be thinking, oh, are you going to get drunk on this? You most certainly are not. Because, you know, if you're putting this in a 400-degree oven at some point, and so that alcohol is going to burn off, but it is going to leave you with a very nice flaky pie crust. So I'm adding
I
the
thought you were going
vodka
to say
now.
one of these is for the pie crust and one of these is for me.
Oh, there's a little bit left. Yeah. So we are combining that all together. And I'm going to see how this looks here. You know, it's really interesting. You know, earlier you had to add a little extra water. I find that sometimes flour is so finicky. You know, sometimes it's really thirsty and it will, for whatever reason, really soak up all the liquid and want more. And other times it's like, I'm good. And you find
Yep.
you've put too much in. So it kind of goes by feel. And you just kind of have to gauge that. So the more you make pie crust, though, or pie dough, I think the better understanding you have of it. So
Well,
I'm
and the other thing too is that
Mhm.
like it really is okay, like with so many things with baking, being exact in your measurements is really important. With pie
Yeah.
crust, adding a little more water or a little more flour just to get
Hmm.
the right feel is what you want
Yeah.
to do. But it's not going to affect the overall ratio at all.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So what then, once this is combined, then what happens is I will divide it. And this is kind of up to the kind of, you know, baker and cook that you are. You could weigh the dough so that they're all exactly the same, you know, portion them out exactly the same, or I have a tendency to just eyeball it like, yeah, that looks about right. So So totally up to you. But once I have the dough all together and separated, then what I usually do is I will wrap it in plastic wrap and then put it inside a Ziploc bag. So the plastic, when I wrap it in plastic, I'll kind of mash it down into a disc, kind of a, I don't know, 8-inch disc. Which makes it a little bit easier to defrost and a little bit easier to roll out. I like your idea, though, of completely like rolling it out so it's like ready to go. Yeah, that's smart. I might do that this year.
There you go.
So, but yeah, so that is the pie dough.
Amazing. Yeah, I have read about this technique of using vodka in pie
Oh
crust, but I've
yeah.
never tried it.
Oh yeah,
So
try
yeah,
it.
I've got to
Yeah.
try it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an ingenious idea.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, and it's always worked for me, and so um, it's something that I enjoy. But I really want to try that though with the egg and the vinegar. I've never made a pie dough like that, so
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, the other thing that the egg does that I like is that it just gives it a little bit richer flavor, and it
Hmm.
helps with the coloring. So if you're doing a pie
Oh yeah.
crust like for a cream pie, and you want that really golden color, then the egg is going to help you do that a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm gonna grab. I made some dough earlier today, and I'm gonna grab it and show you how
Oh,
I go about.
oh, great.
I I bought the little 6-inch
Oh, great.
pie plates. They came in a set of 4. I bought them a couple of months ago, and I've been a little bit obsessed with them. Um, I love them. So, for those of you who joined us a little bit later and don't know who I am, my husband and I are empty nesters. Our daughters are grown, and we live in an RV and we travel full time. So, most of the time, it's just the two of us. And we don't have neighbors that we know that we can share a bunch of things with and,
Hmm.
whatever. No more kids at home. And so, these little 6-inch pie plates are so great because yeah, I can make pot pie in them or any kind of pie. And then I thought, well, okay, so I'm not the only one who is cooking for just 2 people or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, I'm doing a series of mini pie recipes. So I've done apple crumb pie and chicken pot pie and coconut cream pie. And coming
Yum.
up later, either this week or next, will be pecan and pumpkin pie.
Oh,
So
wow.
all of the mini pie
Yeah.
recipes are only for paid subscribers, but let me tell you, a little trick is you can just subscribe for a 7-day free trial and grab the recipes if you want to do that. I hope you stick around, but if you don't, that's okay too. So
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
going to use these, and I'm going to show you what I do to shape these. I'm going to grab the dough that I pre-made out of the refrigerator. Give me 1 second.
Okay. We know when Rebecca started posting these mini pies, I immediately messaged her and said, "Okay, where did you get those? I have to have them now." Because
They're so
I'm in
great.
a I'm in a similar situation where it's my husband and I most of the time. I mean, our youngest still lives at home, but it's I'm cooking dinner basically for the two of us. And so when I make a pie, it's dangerous to have a giant pie around the kitchen. So I love the idea of doing mini pies. That's really
Yeah.
so, so good.
No,
So
they're
good.
they're great. I've been getting a lot of use out of these for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so one thing to consider before you roll out your pie crust is whether you're going to pre-bake the crust.
Hmm.
If you're making like a cream pie, then you're definitely going to pre-bake the crust. But um, you also might want to partially pre-bake the crust if you're making a fruit pie. Um, if you don't want the bottom crust to be soggy at all. So this is a matter of preference. My mom loves her fruit pie, the bottom crust to be a little bit soggy. Like it's her favorite thing. She
Oh,
absolutely loves
really?
that. So
Soggy bottom. She likes the soggy bottom.
she
Oh.
loves that. So if that's you, then you should not pre-bake at all, partially pre-bake your bottom crust.
Mm,
I don't. I want it to be a little bit crispy, as flaky as possible. And so
yeah.
with a lot of fruit pies, like apple pie, I wouldn't do this with, but with a lot of berry pies where you have a lot of juice in there, partially baking that crust before filling it with the filling and then finishing the baking can keep the bottom crust nice and crispy. Another trick for fruit pies to keep the bottom crust kind of crispy and not soggy is to partially bake the crust and then put a layer of jam before you put the fruit filling. The jam will create this barrier between the juice from the fruit and the crust. And then also it's just really good. It adds a whole layer of flavor there on the bottom. So that's another little trick. But if you're going to be partially baking the crust in advance, one thing to do ahead of time is to take a piece of foil and shape it to your pie crust plate. And this will make it much easier. I'll show you in a minute to weight the pie crust down so it doesn't puff up when it pre-bakes in the oven. So I'm just shaping this to the plate and then I'm going to remove it. And now I've got this pre-shaped piece of foil, which I'm going to set aside. And here's the dough that I made earlier today. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my work surface.
Now, Rebecca, I have a question. So when you pre-bake pie, do
Yeah.
you use pie weights or do you use beans or what do you like to use to weigh down that
So I have been
dough?
using these beans
Hmm.
for, I kid you not, probably 20 years. It's the same bag of beans. I know, maybe longer. It is possible that these are even older than 20 years old. So I know you can buy pie weights, but a pound or two of beans works
Yeah,
great, and they last apparently forever.
I love that. So great.
So here's our dough. I've got the floured surface, and I'm just going to start rolling it out. Now you'll notice as you start to roll it out, because the dough is a little bit on the damp side, that it's going to start to stick to your rolling pin. No problem. We're just going to flip it over, make sure both sides are dusted, and then we're just going to roll it out into a circle. And you'll see how easily this dough rolls out. And that's the egg in there.
Yeah,
Um,
that looks
yeah, that
super
egg is
easy.
so easy and it's so less likely to break. One thing that you will probably want to do before you start rolling out the dough is have a spatula close by. Because if that dough starts to stick to the countertop and stick to the work surface, then you can just use that to kind of loosen it,
Hmm.
move some flour around under there, um, and
Yeah,
and there you
that's
go.
super smart. Now, have you ever rolled out pie dough between parchment sheets? I have tried
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually that's a great technique, especially for any dough where you really don't wanna incorporate any excess flour.
Hmm.
Um, in this case, like, because we talked earlier about how we want some flour that is coated in fat and some flour that's not. Incorporating a little bit of extra flour as we're rolling it out is actually not a bad thing. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of pastries where you don't want to incorporate any flour at all, and then rolling it out with parchment paper is a really great idea. Or wax
Yeah.
paper, you can do either one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So then to fit it into the pie plate, all I do is kind of loosen the bottom here with my spatula, and then I fold it in half and then fold it in half again. So we have a triangle. And then you just pick that up. The point of the triangle should be in the center of the pie plate. And then you can just unfold it right into your pie plate. Now,
Beautiful.
here's
Beautiful.
the thing. As you do this, and pie crust is so, so, so forgiving, you can be super gentle and you won't get any tears. And that is never, ever, ever how I do anything. I don't know. So, as you're fitting it into the pie plate, just any little tears that come up, you just pat them together, and that is not a problem. And Betty, you had said
Yeah.
that you like um kind of a big crust rim on the outside, and I do too. So,
Hmm.
I usually trim off um enough to where I end up with about a half or about an inch, a whole inch of dough kind of hanging over so that
Hmm.
I can form like kind of the cylinder
Yeah.
around the outside. So you get a nice thick. Now, one of the things about having a nice, like really thick rim on the outside of your dough is no matter what you do, there's gonna be some shrinkage when you bake. Um,
Yep.
all that flour, as it's baking, kind of shrinks together. All the gluten in there kind of shrinks together, and you absolutely will have some shrinkage. There's kind of no getting around it. Um, in this recipe, the egg and the vinegar will help to prevent some of that. And Betty,
Hmm.
I would imagine that the alcohol in in your recipe
Hmm.
inhibits gluten development, so it probably
Yes.
prevents some shrinkage as well.
Yeah, I would think so. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, because it stops the formation of gluten. So yeah, that makes sense that it wouldn't shrink up as much either. because that gluten will cause it to like contract. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, makes a
So you'll
lot of
have,
sense.
but even with that, it's going to shrink up a little bit.
Yes, yes,
There's no getting around it.
yeah,
And so, leaving a nice thick rim. I don't know if you can see there, but we've got
yeah,
pretty good rim on that,
it's beautiful.
pie plate. So then you just want to kind of crimp the edges so that it looks, reasonably attractive. I usually just do this all the way around, take your knuckle and your two fingers, and you create this little crimping motion. There's a
Great.
lot of different ways to do this. Betty, is this what you do?
Yes, that's exactly what I do. It was funny. I kind of got obsessed with the uh, pie rims for a while, trying to do fancy ones. And um, I I think one year for Thanksgiving, each pie had a different rim. And so baked them. And in the end, they all kind of just they all kind of did their own thing. And it was like, well, this was not what I was planning. So I thought, never mind. I'm just going to do that fun little crimp and call it
Yep.
good. I
Yep.
know that there's beautiful ones, and I see that all the time. There's a gal, oh, I want to say it's Pyometry. She has beautiful pie crust, beautiful. But I just realized that I am not at that level of detail and finesse that it's not going to look like that for me. So
Relate strongly to that. If I ever make you a pie, it is going to taste so good, but it may not be the prettiest thing.
this is why we're friends. Yeah. No, I'm exactly in the same boat, and it's okay. Like I feel like I'm not making pies for a fine dining restaurant. I'm making pies for my family, for my friends,
Right.
actually neighbors. I sent one over today. I was like, I can't eat anymore. I'm pie, testing recipes. And so, people aren't picky about stuff like that. And
That's right.
so, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got our pie crust that's all shaped, and then because we have pre-shaped, if we were going to pre-bake it, if we're not going to pre-bake it and we're just going to fill it with the filling, then I would put this in the refrigerator and make sure it's
Hmm.
nice and cold before adding the filling.
Yeah.
Remember, pie crust has a lot of fat. You do not want the fat to get too warm. You don't want it to start melting before it starts baking. So yes, if you're just filling it and baking it without doing any pre-baking, put this in the fridge or even in the freezer to make sure it's nice and cold before you fill it. If you're going to pre-bake it, then we've already shaped our foil, so we're just going to press that foil right inside there, and then as I said, I have these beans that I have been using for at least 20 years.
That's so great.
And I'm just going to pop those in there. So the great thing about the what you need in there is something like that that will hold the pie crust down, because bubbles are going to develop in the dough and then it's going to puff up, and
Mhm,
you're going to have a little bit of a mess on your hands. So that's just going to help to hold it down.
mhm.
So to pre-bake a pie crust, if you're just partially baking it, so you're gonna partially bake the crust, then put in the filling, and then put it in the oven to finish baking, then I would bake it with the beans in there, with the weights in there at 400 degrees for about 10 minutes. Then pull the beans out, poke it all over with a fork to kind of create some holes, because it's still going to want to puff up, and
Yeah.
then put it back in the oven for another 10 to 12 minutes so that it gets kind of brown. Pull it out, fill it, and then finish baking. If you're going to completely bake the crust, then you want that process to be a little bit longer. Leave the beans in there weighted down for maybe 20 minutes, then pull them out, poke it with a fork. And at that point, you want to just bake it until the crust is really golden brown. Here's something that these my cute little 6-inch pie plates, the one downside to them is they're not glass. Glass lets you see when the
Oh,
crust is done.
mhm.
So honestly, glass is is great for pie plates because it can be kind of hard to know when the crust is done on the bottom, especially if you have a pie
Mm,
with that you're baking it with the filling. It's really hard to tell. And so with glass, you can lift it up and look at the bottom, and you can see if the crust is still doughy or if it's baked all the way through. So with
yeah.
these, you're going on instinct.
And luck.
Instinct and luck.
Now, I have a question for you. So, how do you feel about a filling like pumpkin? I mean, we're coming up on a very popular pumpkin season. So,
Yeah.
do you pre-bake or partially bake your crust for like a pumpkin pie or no?
Usually,
Yeah.
but you don't have to. It
Um,
depends on whether you want that soft crust. So,
yeah.
and with a pumpkin pie, it's a little bit different from a fruit pie because the pumpkin isn't going
Hmm.
to make the bottom crust soggy, but the
Hmm.
bottom crust is going to be soft. So
Yeah.
if you like that, where you like the crispy layer on the edges and the softer crust at the bottom, then don't
Mm,
partially pre-bake your crust. Just pour the
yeah.
filling in there and bake it all at once. If you
Mhm.
want the bottom to be on the crispy side, then partially pre-bake it, add the filling, and then finish
Yeah.
baking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
like that too.
yeah. So that's it. I wanted to see if I had any other tips for you guys that we didn't. Oh, one more tip that I wanted to share with you guys. If you're making a fruit pie with a top crust, Betty, I know you do this too. Brushing the top crust with an egg wash, or even just milk. So like a beaten egg with some water. Or just some milk so that the top crust is wet, and then sprinkle it with sugar
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It makes that top crust like caramelized and sugary and crispy on the top.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And adds
it's
some shine and makes it pretty and yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
So does anybody have any questions before we sign off here? If you joined us later, all you have to do to get both of these recipes is subscribe to either myself or Betty. You can find my newsletter at RebeccaBlackwell.com. Betty's is at Betty Eats, EATZ.
Yes.
And you'll get both of the recipes. Definitely subscribe to Betty because she's sending out a issue this weekend with 30 different pies from
Yes.
how many? So is it 30 different food writers that
Yeah.
contribute?
Yeah. 30 different food writers and yeah. Yeah. They were all so generous. They sent me, the recipes, the photos, the links. And again, so many of them unlocked, archived posts and even developed new recipes. So very, very wonderful group of food writers. And so very excited about this post. So
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to get it.
Yeah.
So that will come out this weekend. So subscribe to Betty's newsletter and you'll get that. And here's the other thing that I have to say. I know Betty personally, and I can tell you right now that if you ever have a question or a request or anything for her, all you have to do is reach out, send her a direct message. She's incredibly generous with her time and her expertise. So if you're
Oh,
watching this later and you make her pie crust recipe, please reach out with any questions that you have. And
oh, thank
the
you.
same goes for me. Please
Yes.
reach out at any time with any questions that you have.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say the same, Rebecca. You are one of the most generous people that I know, and you have helped so many people. So
Thank you,
I
Betty.
love that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on today. How fun was this to make pie? And what I loved was just like, you feel like I have zero holiday shopping done, but it's like, but now I'm going to have some pie dough made. So I can kind of
Betty, I'll
check
tell
that one.
you, if I have holiday shopping done the week before Christmas, we are ahead of schedule.
That's all I can do.
It's 90 degrees in Southern California. You can't do
Yes.
Christmas shopping.
No.
No, you gotta go
So
to the
not in the
beach.
mood. Yeah. Yes. Much better idea. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me on today. And thank you for all the people that have joined us. It was really wonderful to see so many names. So,
Yes. Thanks
yeah.
everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.